Welcome to episode 3 of So We Think, talking horse racing before all the Spring Carnival days with Ben Way and Emma Freedman. Ben, it is great to hear your voice yet again.
It's good to be back, and it's holding together. I was a little bit worried yesterday, midweek's long day, that maybe it would take its toll again, but we're on the improve. And by the sounds of things, I've infected everybody in Sydney. So I'm glad, having coughed and spluttered my way through last week, I didn't get you sick.
Somehow.
You're invincible.
I would like to think that, but I think I've just had every sickness under the sun due to my 2 children over the last 4 years.
Hey, well done, by the way. Caulfield Cup success.
Thank you. Yes, it was good to see Sam get a win with or without a fight in the Caulfield Cup, of course, and nice to tip a winner as well. The rest of my tipping, especially the defeat of Riff Rocket in the Norman Robinson, was hard to cop. I mean, the sectionals were slow mid-race and, you know, that's got to be considered an excuse, but I think I'll still be on him heading towards the Victoria Derby.
Your tipping's been considerably better than mine, which is stone cold Steve Austin. Like, I stink, but I haven't got a $1.35 pop beat.
That was tough.
So that is something. Commemorative was my best for the day. Has gone down a lip. I still think that she's the horse for the 1,000 guineas. We'll probably see on Saturday. We get to see Arctic Glamour again in the calendar Presnell. We'll see whether there's been an elevation once again. But, yeah, I wasn't unhappy with the run. I was just unhappy with how much money I got back in my tab account, which was zero.
Even though they were short-priced favourites, I think both of those, Riff Rocket and Commemorative, put them in the black book. They will win a nice race this spring, that is for sure. So this Saturday, what a card we have. Moonee Valley, of course, the WS Cox Plate over the 2,040 metres, and the Group 1 Manikato, which has moved to Saturday after they had to put it on the Saturday last year due to the thunderstorms on the Friday night. So they've rejigged the program a bit.
What are your thoughts there?
I'm happy with it because I was there last year and it did work. It did work. It just elevated the day. And I think on the Friday night, having the Moonee Valley Cup there, I don't think it really detracts from the race meeting at all. I think that kind of race is more suited to the Friday, and having the big, you know, Group 1 for the sprinters to go alongside the Weight for Age Championship of Australasia, I think it works.
Okay.
You don't agree?
You've tipped me. No, I disagree. Yeah, I like the Friday night. I think Manikato Stakes night on a Friday night is the perfect entree to the main meal the next day. I will say to anyone who's keen for a punt, it's always been one of my favourite nights to have a bet Friday night because it is the hottest fence you'll ever see. Just do your speed maps, get your leaders, horses up on speed, because the rail stays in the true position for both.
Yep.
So it has to be hot to be even the next day for Cox Plate Day.
Great tip. Love that. And then at Randwick, we've got the Spring Champion Stakes for the 3-year-olds over the 2,000 metre, the invitation for the mares over the 1,400, the Group 2 calendar Presnell worth $1 million, and the Group 3 Craven Plate over the 2,000 metres as well. Okay, let's quickly rank our top 5 ever Cox Plates.
Yeah, so this was hard, actually. Not hard to put a horse on top. I went with Winks. That seems a fait accompli. You win it 4 times. She was the best. In terms of which one, I went with the first one, only because the rest felt like they were just going to happen. There was one scare with Humidor.
I think the third, maybe. Yeah.
The fourth was a procession, as I think it was labelled in the call. But the first one was where we went, wow, we've probably got a star here. Maccabi Diva, I can understand why you would be interested there. I went with Le Gracieux, though. I had Maccabi Diva down in 4th, and So You Think splitting it. How did neither of us, given the show name, how did neither of us put So You Think on top?
Oh, tricky to do. I mean, I put So You Think in 3rd, and the reason I had Winks on top because she won 4, and that will never be done again. And I put her 4th in because it was such a celebration of her career. And then Maccabi Diva for her versatility and the wall of horses that came around the bend, and then what she was able to do to win her 3rd Melbourne Cup only 10 days later. But So You Think, you know, his first was amazing, only at his 5th career start, and then to do it a year later again at $1.50, $1.40 pop, pretty incredible.
My 5th selection I regretted as soon as I saw your list. So I went with Saintly, who I absolutely loved, and maybe that was near peak race fandom for me at that time, late 90s. But when I saw Fields of Omar sneak into your list, I was like, that really was a great story.
Huge.
And a horse that just elevated itself every single time in that race.
To win his first Cox Plate and then his second 3 years later as a 9-year-old.
Yeah.
Amazing performance. I had Sunline in for 5th, her second one at that, because earlier in the preparation, this is when the programming was a little bit different. She actually won the Manikato earlier in the preps over the 1200 and
Ridiculous.
then wait for age 2000. What a superstar mare she was.
Just on the Japanese horse very quickly.
Yes, was that a punting story that tipped you over?
It was a monster.
Was it?
And the ill-fated wedding, it actually got funded a lot by that. Actually, the wedding wasn't ill-fated. It was just the bit that followed. But it was such a good punting win. There were multis. There was one horror multi that went awry, but I had a lot of flip 1,000 guineas into Le Gracieux. I forget which order they went in, but they were essentially the double. But there was another one, Flit, Le Gracieux, and Santa Ana Lane to win the Everest. He ran second behind Yes, Yes,
That's
Yes.
right.
That was for 36.
Oh, that's a tragedy.
So that stung. But there were just a series over the course of 3 months where any bet that I had, I just put an extra 10 on it into the Japanese horse. So, geez, it was a fun watch.
Speaking of the Cox Plate, let's talk to a very special guest.
Ben, I'm excited for this chat. This man, an absolute superstar during his riding days, and now works with the Chris Waller stable in Melbourne. Stephen Arnold, winner of the Cox Plate on So You Think. Welcome to So We Think. We actually named our show after your champion.
Yeah, that's great. No, great to be here, Em. Great memories this week, really. Every year, the Cox Plate, what a special race, and a bit of an honour to be remembered with such a great horse.
We'll discuss your relationship with the Waller team in 2 ticks, but is there any jealousy? Is not the right word, but do you miss it when we get to this stage of the year?
I definitely miss this stage of the year. Throughout the year, I rode for 27 years or something, so no regrets that way. And I was a heavyweight jockey and always had to battle with my weight. So that side of things, I don't miss it all. But I'm doing a little bit of work behind the barriers and that, and I definitely get the adrenaline rush when big races are on and the horses are filing down to the stalls and you see the real proper Group 1 horses. I really miss it then, but that's probably the only time. When I see that sauna as I walk past the jockey's room, I don't miss it so much then.
How lucky are our Melbourne hoops or even Sydney hoops riding in Melbourne during this time of year, not only to have Stevie behind the gates, but also Nick Hall as well.
Amazing.
You'd be a calming influence there, mate.
Yeah, I see Nick behind the stalls. He's doing a great job, actually. He's really good. He's really good behind the barriers, and he looks great. He's nice and healthy and well, and he's a great guy, Nick. So good to see him active and staying in the industry. And as I say, he does a really good job behind the stalls. So he's doing well.
You know what I'm filthy about? In preparation for this chat, obviously, a lot of the preparation we don't have to do. We watched it. So it's just a trip down memory lane, which I'm looking forward to. But I did message Charlie Duckworth and asked him to call me, and I said, I need some dirt on this bloke. And he had none.
Because he's the nicest guy.
Well, so nice or boring? He said to me, you're as genuine as they come. I'll try to think of some dirt. He went off for a couple of hours, came up with nothing. So can I just say, for a man who probably a lot of people have dirt on me.
There's skeletons in your closet.
That says a lot in racing that he had nothing on you.
Yeah, that's pretty good. It's either boring or I've got some pretty close friends who keep things pretty close to the chest, so that's good. But I'll take boring. That'll do.
I reckon it's the second.
Yeah, I think it might be too.
Hey, let's flash back to your champion in So You Think. So the first Cox Plate that he won as a 3-year-old, Glenn Voss, was on board. Tell us about how you built a relationship, I guess, with Bart and the team to then get on him the following year in a preparation that included a Caulfield Stakes, a Cox Plate, and then a McKinnon.
Yeah, well, it was. I'd sort of had a pretty good association with Bart over nearly the previous 8 to 10 years. I won the Oaks for him early on in the 2000s, and we'd had quite a good relationship. And I worked closely with Reg Fleming at Flemington, so we had a pretty good association. And obviously, I'd seen So You Think around. I was actually in the Cox Plate the year before. I rode Old Zipping, and he ran third in the Cox Plate. But he was awesome that day. So You Think, but I never really thought that I would get on him. But he missed the autumn because he had a throat operation, and then when he come back in the spring of that year, he was in great shape. Beautiful horse, as you'd know. It was a real rock star to look at, and it just happened. It sort of fell into place that I was able to ride him in a bit of work before the McKinnon. And then I got the ride in the McKinnon Stakes, and I sort of thought that was a crucial race for me, because I thought if I win on him, it's pretty hard to take me off. So once he won that race, that was probably nearly the most excited I was for the spring. After that, it was a bit of, he's expected to win, and even in the Cox Plate, he was $1.50. And I remember I was in the car just before going into Cox Plate Day, and it's obviously a race that everyone wants to win. I grew up same as you, Emma, in a racing family, so it's a race that you hold pretty close to your heart. And I was in the car, and I remember them saying over on the radio, "Oh, they're paying out on So You Think in the Cox Plate." And I thought, "Oh, geez, just let us get it done first, will you?" So there was a bit of pressure going into the race, and it was more so a relief when he won. So it wasn't that absolute, obviously a thrill, but more of a relief just to get everything right and get the job done on the day.
I was lucky enough to be on track that day, and the Great Black Caviar ran around as well a little bit earlier on. I think it was 3 races prior to that. It was a remarkable era, wasn't it? We had some absolute stars, and I guess the shame was that So You Think then left our shores.
Yeah.
Was that one of the tougher moments for you? I know that there were Melbourne Cups, and I don't know whether your association would have continued from that point on, but it was so disappointing for me that he left.
Are you saying I would have got the sack off him?
I'm saying Bart was.
I think you said at the time, is this right, Stephen? You said, "I don't know if he gets the 2 miles." Is that something you did say?
Well, his whole preparation was geared towards the Cox Plate. That's the race we wanted to win. So it's a 2,000-metre race. So his whole preparation, he went, 1,400 mile, 1,800. So it was all geared towards the 2,000 metres. And then he went and run in the McKinnon, obviously 2,000 metres again. So it's a big jump to go from a 2,000-metre race and the pace of a 2,000-metre race. And he was an on-pace, strong horse in a 2,000-metre race. So to go to the 2 miles was, I know he was favourite, but it was quite a challenge for him. And he ran amazing. Like, he was keen in the run, and I presented probably early, but I would have been stopping him if I didn't present him. So I presented him, and American came off my back and was too strong for us. It was a wet track as well, which made it more testing. So it was just a testing. It was the testing 2 miles that got us. I mean, his class was unbelievable that day, and I still think it was one of his best runs. So he didn't. He did us proud on that day, and I thought it was an amazing run. But back to the question about going overseas. From a selfish point of view, obviously, I would have liked him to stick around, because the next year was Pinka, which no disrespect to her, but he would have lapped him that next year. So from a selfish point of view, I would have loved him to stay. But in saying that, I really enjoyed him going over there, and he won 5 Group 1s overseas, and he ran in the good races. He ran in an Arc, and he ran in America in those big races. So I was really happy to see him go over there and prove himself against the world.
Bart was, his assessment of the Melbourne Cup was probably what sparked my question there. And I thought it was a little bit harsh, but who am I to question Bart? What was he like? Was he a touch prickly? Was his assessment post-race always, because he was who he was, it was always so public. So if he was critical of the ride, it was almost like a public hanging.
Yeah, for sure. He was actually okay with me, but I think he sort of spur of the moment. I'm not sure, he thought he got there a bit early, but I think if you watch the race, he was pretty keen through. I had a pretty good position in the race, actually had a good run, and it was just the leaders were sort of stopping in front of me. My momentum was sort of taking me into it, and I didn't want to stop him at the time, so I rolled into the race. He probably got there too soon, but I thought he was always going to be a little bit tested at the 2 mile. And American come off our back, and was obviously, he's a great horse, and he was the better stayer on the day. But did I go a bit early? Maybe.
Stevie, let's talk about your life
to
now.
2,000.
Yeah.
Honestly, I don't know how they show the restraint that they do.
Just relax in the run. Very difficult to do. Let's talk about your life now, because for the last few years you've been working with Chris Waller in Melbourne and the team down there. Vastly different trainer to work for, I imagine, Chris, to Bart. Tell us about your role with Waller Racing.
Yeah, so when I did my last year riding in Mauritius, and I rode a little heavier over there, and I really enjoyed it. But when I come back to Melbourne, I sort of thought, I don't think I can physically do this anymore. It's a very restrictive lifestyle, and I've got a family that it's quite restrictive on everybody, and quite a selfish sort of a lifestyle. So I was happy to hang up the boots, but I've sort of ridden my whole life, and I thought once I stop riding, I'll never ride again. And I love riding, so I was happy to take up a position track riding at Flemington. I did a bit for Lloyd Williams also, but then he shut down his operation, so I end up with Chris, and it's been great. So I go in to Flemington every day and ride track work there, and I really enjoy it. And I've been able to sit on some nice ones again, which I was lucky enough to do as a jockey, and it's great to sit on those nice ones. Nature Strip comes to mind. He was a beautiful horse and a great horse to ride, and not little, but he's a nice colt. Militarize, he's in at the moment, obviously in the Cox Plate, and Fangirl, she's obviously in there as well. So it's great to still sit on some nice ones.
I'm sure you're under strict instruction, but are you just tempted, say with Nature Strip, were you just thinking, I might push the button?
Yeah, let's go.
I'll never get the chance to feel this once again. Yeah. So that would be a temptation that I don't think I could tolerate.
Yeah, it is a little bit like that. I rode Nature Strip, and I was able to let him out a bit, so he ran pretty quick for me. But the other day, I rode Solcombe at Flemington in a gallop, and he was going. I thought he was going really well, and I followed a horse, and I come to the outside, and Chris likes them always well in hand, and I worked with Ollie actually, and I said, "Oh, geez, I was tempted just to let this rip, Ollie," and he had a bit of a laugh. But it's that that feeling that you sort of don't really get anymore, but. It's exactly as you say. I was tempted a few times on them good ones to let them rip, but my boss, Mr. Waller, probably not that happy with that. So I'll keep them contained when I can.
Well, let's talk about Mr. Waller's runners in the Cox Plate. As you mentioned, Militarize, the 3-year-old, and then Fangirl, the winner of the King Charles III, only a couple of weeks ago. So you rode her at work on Tuesday. Zach Lloyd came down, had his first look at the Valley on Tuesday as well. How did she feel? But how is he going?
Yeah, I've been riding him. That's the only day I sort of haven't ridden Militarize. So I've been quite close with him, and geez, a beautiful colt. He's push button. He's does not put a foot wrong, which is, some of them colts are pretty exuberant, and obviously they want to keep them colts because they're valuable, but their behaviour can be a bit suspect. But he's beautiful. He puts his head on his chest and just does everything perfectly. So that'll get him a long way. I think he's going great. I think his run in the Guineas was good the other day. Visually doesn't look that good, but when you have a look at the sectionals, they went steady, quick and home. I thought he did a good job. I think he reeled off the best sectionals of the race, and it was just one of those runs where you thought 3-year-old lightweight, he'll be closing hard in the Cox Plate, and from that gate he might be able to lob a little bit closer too, and I'm sure he'll be strong. He's always strong in his races. So with that weight, it's such a good benefit to get that, discount in the weights. So I'm sure he'll run great. Fangirl, she was terrific in Sydney the other day, wasn't she? She was like outstanding. Couldn't go away from that win. I mean, her little task is she goes up to the 2,000 meters of the Cox Plate, and it's quite a testing 2,000 metres. They run uphill from about the 800 metre mark. They sort of gradually run uphill. So it's quite a testing 2,000 metres. Like, it looks like you're around the corner and you're home, but it is reasonably testing. So that's her test. But if she turns up in the form she did the other day, and all signs Tuesday, I thought she worked great on Tuesday. She had a look around last Saturday when J-Mac rode her. She sort of had a bit of a look at the stands and that. But on Tuesday, I thought she ripped up really good. Very happy with her. She's very fit. They're both very fit. So if you're a punter and you like them, I couldn't sway you away from them.
There's a big test coming up for a young jockey, and we touched on Zach Lloyd, but I want to get inside the conversation that you had with him. He's alluded to it. He said, my first questions were about Moonee Valley and how I should ride in a Cox Plate, and then there are obviously questions relating to winning a Cox Plate and how you went about it and maybe managing this horse. So can you shed a little bit of light on the conversation you had, not just about the track, but also about the Cox Plate specifically?
Yeah, well, he sort of said, I haven't met Zach before, so it was he's a really nice kid actually. He's a pleasure to be around, and he said, "Tell me everything you know," and I wrote it on the back of a postage stamp and gave it to him. But so he he was great actually. We went out at the Valley, and his first time ever at the Valley. I didn't know he hadn't ridden in Melbourne, but his first time at the Valley, and him and Militarize were both eyes were wide open. So it was quite good to watch. But he was just asking about, like, there's a few little things about the Valley that are a bit different to most tracks. You know, you go around the corner after the post, and they sort of run downhill, and it's not that noticeable on television, but when you get down there and you really look at it, it's quite downhill. The corners are a bit different, but it's beautifully cambered, so you can get high on the track and make a run. But all those little things I was sort of trying to explain to him in one sort of go, so that's hard. But lovely kid, and he's very talented. I've watched him ride, so he's got no problems in that from that point of view. And I think he seems like he'll handle the occasion no problem. Youthful exuberance, which I don't have it anymore, but he'll deal with it beautifully by the feel of the kid he is.
When you've got as many wins as he has, but you haven't, I mean, he's not old and he hasn't been around that long.
20
but when you haven't got, until you get that first Group 1, how much does it hang over your head? And how much would it hang over your head knowing that first Group 1 could be a Cox Plate?
Yeah, I think it's probably a little intimidating to be going out there in such a big race and being on such a nice chance. But as I say, he's, that youth sort of, the sports people with youth, they seem to sort of not worry about it and take it as a challenge, which I think he is. And I think he's very confident in his own ability. So, that'll get him a long way.
Okay. Can I ask one more?
Yes. The man's got work to do.
Sorry, one very quick one. I'm always looking for an edge. I always want some inside work.
He wants something that's going around to Tura next Thursday or something.
I don't care where it's running. They all pay the same, Em. You're obviously writing a bit of work. You hear the whispers. Is there anything heading into a spring, maybe a youngster, into a race over the spring that I should be on?
No, I haven't got too much. But in the big ones, I do like Militarize. I think he's going beautifully, and he's a bit of an obvious one, but I think he's still okay in the market. So I reckon he's one you want to have a look at.
Might be a touch too late to black book Militarize, but it's noted.
Yeah. I think, if he doesn't win Saturday, he's got a big future ahead of him, both on and off the track. Like, he's already done his job, hasn't he? 3-time Group 1 winner.
As is this man.
Absolutely. Thank you so much for joining us, Stevie. Great to catch up, reminisce about So You Think, and get your take on all the Waller runners for the Cox Plate.
Absolute pleasure, guys. Thanks for that.
Let's take a look at these Group 1 fields for Saturday, starting with the WS Cox Plate, the Weight for Age Championship of Australasia. And honestly, Ben, I look through this field of 12 and there is class and quality everywhere we look. Last weekend's Caulfield Cup was a vintage classic Caulfield Cup, and I look at this the same way.
Yeah, and we've got the international flavour, which is, a lot of people say, do we need the internationals? What do they add? I just absolutely love it. For a storyline point of view, you've got Romantic Warrior, who came here and was maybe felled a touch first run in the country, but you just know there's so much improvement there. James McDonald, it's a different storyline. But then you've got horses the calibre of Zaki that up until a couple of days ago was $26. And you're thinking, how deep is this field? And in between, everywhere you look, Mr. Brightside, Alligator Blood has, Group 1's coming out at Wazoo. You've got Pinstriped, an up-and-comer. My Oberon's been Group 1 competitive. Like, there's good horses everywhere.
I love this field for the fact that you're right, the international flavour, but also, you've got a couple of the 3-year-olds down the bottom there who only have to carry 49.5 kilos. So Militarize is already a 3-time Group 1 winner.
Yep.
He's looking for a Cox Plate at his 10th start. And then King Colorado, he's been a fascinating conveyance, winning the JJ Atkins during the Winter Carnival. And then they raced him Weight for Age conditions first up this preparation, and he was not disgraced in the Caulfield Guineas at all. So they add a little bit of flavour. You've also got the likes of Zach Lloyd getting his first ever start in a Cox Plate. He hasn't won a Group 1 before. He's one of those apprentices from Sydney who there's been a couple of them like Tyler and Dylan. They've got the Group 1 and he's still had to wait and bide his time.
And he's ridden a Group 1 favourite. He had Tis Invincible,
Yeah.
who was drawn poorly. And to be honest, if you're trying to get your first Group 1, that was almost the nightmare. A horse that's questionable at the trip from a wide gate where there's going to be high pressure. I felt for him there. And the past month, 2 months, I reckon Zach's maybe not gone off the boil, but he's not as airborne as he was. This is a huge chance.
Massive chance.
This is I'm so excited for him. He is a gun. I love his family. I love how close they are. I love the fact that they all get there and try and watch him and cheer him on in these. So, yeah, Militarize is going to be hard to beat.
And, there's a couple of other jockeys in there who yet to ride in a Cox Plate, like Jamie Mott, Ben Allen, and can you believe Michael D's never had a ride in a Cox Plate?
Really?
Isn't that crazy? So we'll get to our tips in a bit, but there's a short little preview. Don't forget Fangirl as well, and Jewess. She's been hitting the line for Edward Cummings as well. I know she's a tease. I'm well aware that Jewess is a tease, but Fangirl, that win in the King Charles worth $5 million only a couple of weeks ago, maybe she's the forgotten horse.
Yeah.
A little bit.
No, I agree on that front. But you could mount a case for 10 of them.
Yeah.
And that's why it's good. That's when you've got a good race. And, it's the best weight for age race in Australasia, and I look forward to it every year.
Let's move on to the Group 1 in Sydney this weekend, which is the Spring Champion Stakes for the 3-year-olds over the 2,000 metres. Your best ever Spring Champion winner?
Oh, yeah, I did. This took a lot of thinking. So I went with Tie the Knot back in 97, and you'll notice that a lot of my sporting best ofs are back in 97, 98. The Crows did the double around then. Pat Rafter, I think, was winning, multiple Grand Slams, that sort of thing. Robert Harvey went back-to-back in a Brownlow, but Tie the Knot was just an all-time star. Nothing like a Dane, so I've gone back 2 years. By this point, you're, 8 years old or something
less
like
than,
that?
I think, yeah.
It's a done deal in 2012. And then Yankee Rose and Savabeel. So it's a strong list, but I could have really chopped and changed that order 10 times.
I put It's a Done Deal on top. That was his first Group 1, and then would go on to win the Triple Crown in the autumn. So the Randwick, the Rosehill Guineas, and then the Australian Derby. Yankee Rose, because she was the first ever filly to win the Spring Champion. Zavabeel went on to win a Cox Plate that same year. That is incredible. Tie the Knot because of his, I guess, the legend that is Tie the Knot. And then Montefilia, who completed the Flight Spring Champion double, which was a difficult thing to do.
Well, that horse shouldn't be on your list after what it did to me last week in the Caulfield Cup.
Quickly, a little preview of the Spring Champion. A market headed by Tom Kitten. Hard to miss his last start second.
Yeah, he's undoubtedly the horse to beat. And I heard our traders talking about how, you might want to push him out, but the weight of money is just going to make it impossible. Rough Attack has no shortage of fans, but I genuinely believe that's just people looking for a horse outside of Tom Kitten. From that race, there was only one horse I was ever going to be swayed towards. The asterisk horse, if there is one, is Toodle La Vida. So I've been a huge fan forever. The Flight Stakes, I thought, was the grand final. And now you kind of look at this and you think, right, you bring something different. You're always hitting the line strongly. I don't think you're that far off them. So that's maybe one if you were looking outside the favourite, but I'll be chips in.
All right, out of looking at the Spring Champion, let's get into our best of the day, our best tips, brought to you by Bet's Friends on the Tab app. Go and find a group and follow some of our experts for some good mail for Saturday's racing.
Yeah, we've got a Black Bookers page there for Bet's Friends. I don't put that many tips up there, but I reckon my strike rate's good.
Okay.
It's better than my actual strike rate, which is deplorable.
It's depressing for you.
Yeah, it is.
Yeah.
But I just like to be involved in everything. Best of the day, Renaissance Woman, around $5.50. Value play of the day, I'm going La Paraine, which weirdly is a touch shorter than my best of the day. Cox Plate winner, Militarized Spring Champion.
Hang on, value play of the day is $5.
Well, it wasn't. It was 8. So I've been impacted.
I think value has to be over 10s. Can we just all agree on that? If you've got feedback, let us know.
Well, I think best of the day needs to be more than $1.35, and if it is $1.35, I think it needs to win. Spring Champion Stakes winner Tom Kitten, Invitation winner Magic Time, and Imperatriz walks in.
Okay, best of the day for me, I am sticking with the Boom Filly and Arctic Glamour.
Yep.
And hoping that she can continue her winning ways and then head towards the 1,000 Guineas. I really liked that win in the Reginald Allen. I thought she was really strong to the line, so I'm excited about her.
Gerald Ryan yesterday, he was he was still bullish. Said absolutely nothing's
He
gone
loves
wrong.
her.
Yeah.
Absolutely loves her.
Yeah.
My value play at the day at $51 in the Spring Champion Stakes. Now, I don't think he's beating Tom Kitten, but for a bit of place money and to add into your multiples, I know that they had high hopes for Madatsu to head to the Derby. Obviously, that's going to be tough from here on in because that's next Saturday. But he's lightly raced. He obviously gets the trip. He's raced over the trip before. Just as a little each way, little place play, Madatsu for me.
So
for
mostly
Chris
the
Hillier.
place, or are you each way?
Oh, I'll be placed with like a slither on the win. But I'm the place play.
Hang
there.
on. Pause. With a what on the win?
Slither.
Oh, say it one more time. One more time for the people at home.
Slither.
Right, okay. So what you mean is a sliver, like a sliver of cake. What you're doing is slithering like a snake. Anyway,
Anyways,
what else you got?
Cox Plate winner. I think Romantic Warrior will jump out of the ground. And if you read the play before his first start in the Turnbull, he was well underdone. Like if you read all the comments from Danny Shum, listen to everything that James McDonald said, like he was not going to win that race.
I'm not hating on the team there at Werribee at all, but I haven't liked what I've read about the facilities there and how he said, you know, Romantic Warrior will only be 85, 90% fit because we haven't had access to the facilities I would have liked.
Well, a part of that is the feed. So the Australian government not letting his feed be approved. So they tried one feed. He didn't like it. He didn't eat for a week or two. And then they've gotten a replica feed from what he usually has in Hong Kong, and that's made the world of difference. And, of course, if a horse is off their feed, you can't pour the work into them.
But no water walker either.
Well, that's a discussion for another time. I'm with you on Tom Kitten. I think he just wins. I am with Espiona because that Everest form line is so strong, and she wasn't disgraced in probably the highest rating race of the year. And then in the Manikato Imperatrice, I just think she's an absolute star. She loves Moonee Valley. I think she'll be winning.
We were a bit boring there, weren't we?
That's okay. Grand predictions time. Let's recap them quickly from last week. You were unlucky because you looked at Zach Lloyd having a mammoth day out. Unfortunately, a few things didn't go his way, including he had one that bled, commemorative. You know, it was just a bit of a car crash for him.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
Do we need to go into
Anyways,
it more?
Matt Dunn did win the highway last Saturday, so it was a done deal.
There's a side
Yeah,
story
no.
there. I won't go into, but there is a side story.
Grand prediction for you for this Saturday.
I think we're going to have the crowning moment for one of the stars of the sport. Throat's going.
Oh,
Zach Lloyd. I think it happens on Saturday.
be a fairy tale.
First Group 1, a Cox Plate. And
Can
from
you
there,
imagine?
bam.
So Chad Schofield's first Group 1 was in the Cox Plate too?
Yeah, that day was so funny. It was so great for him, but everyone in the crowd just went,
What?
Who was that?
Who's this young kid?
No, not the jockey, the horse.
Oh, right.
Who was that?
Yeah, Seamus Award. My big prediction is I wanted to create a headline here, True Romance, because I think the doubters will be put to bed.
So me.
I know, Romantic Warrior winning the Cox Plate. And J-Mac to win his second consecutive Cox Plate.
Yeah, but we're head-to-head.
Here we are. Our predictions
We
are
can't
head-to-head
both
this
be
week.
right.
No, someone will win and someone will lose
I've got
this
a
week.
bad feeling about this.
Thank you for joining us on So We Think for Cox Plate Day and also Spring Champion Stakes Day as well. Download the Tab app, get into that. We'll be together Saturday doing the 7 broadcast.
Yes.
So that should be a lot of fun.
will be good fun. You've got a lot more to do than me, but prices, very important.
Extremely important. Thanks for joining us. We'll catch you again next week.
What are you really gambling with? For free and confidential support, call the number on the screen or visit the website.